Hello everyone, welcome to my SHMUP Master Finds episode. I call it Finds because I've found quite a few shmups in the last couple months and I just wanted to go through them. Give you guys kind of an impromptu episode of basically just me being me, no script, nothing like that. We're just going to go through each game one by one. Obviously there's going to be some pretty stuff to look at because that's what I do. But as far as me goes, you're going to get just me, so maybe you'll get to know me a little better. Beyond just the talking head. You'll get some ums and some stutters and some pauses, but anyway. For those of you that don't know, I went up to M.U.S.H.A up in St. Louis last month with my fellow Gaming Rebellion admins. We all got together, went to the M.U.S.H.A's retro gaming convention in Missouri, and we had a booth for Gaming Rebellion, and we had a great freaking time. Just fantastic. I set up my Genesis, Super Nintendo, I had kids coming and playing, and the place was packed. There was people everywhere. But of course the most fun part for me was towards the end. I went around and I started making deals on games, most of 90% of which were shmups. So I really wanted to see if I could flesh out my collection a bit. I just want to say I got these games in a variety of different places. The first obviously being M.U.S.H.A, which was I was talking about, the convention up in St. Louis. The second being a local store by me down here in Jensen Beach, Florida, South Florida, called Play and Trade. Their prices are like eBay prices basically, but you can, if you buy enough, you can wheel and deal with them. And then lastly, the most impressive of the three, I would say, is this place called Grumpy Bob's Emporium in Collinsville, Illinois, where Brazel the Gamer lives. When we went up and visited, he took us there, and it was, this place is mind-blowing. So if you're ever up there, you need to see it. So I want to share with you what I got. So let's get to it. First game we got is called Sagaia. Genesis game. It's a Darius 2 port from the arcade. Except it's basically got a lot of its own stuff going on. They kind of made it its own unique game. It was released in 1991. Different from the arcade, it lacks a two-player option, unfortunately. Darius Twin on Super Nintendo, which is also a port of Darius 2, had two players. The arcade has two players, but this one doesn't. But the advantages are it has about 28 levels, I believe, which is crazy. It's quite a bit for a shmup, especially one from that era, from '91. You can basically choose the way you go. There's like branching paths you can take as you go along the way, which I thought was pretty interesting as I was playing. The bad news is it's kind of bland. You have 28 levels, right? So that's a hell of a lot of levels. That's maybe two or three times as many as a lot of shmups have, even more than that. So they're kind of bland as a result. You get a whole bunch of levels, but they're kind of flat and kind of samey. And from what I could tell, I didn't get through the whole game. I got about halfway through, maybe. And for me, it's a decent game. It's got decent music. The graphics are on par with the Super Nintendo. Both of them are kind of a step down from the arcade, but they were both early in the life cycles of the systems for the most part. So it's a decent game. I would say it's a decent average shmup. If you're a hardcore collector, pick it up, or I should say a hardcore shmup fan, pick it up. Otherwise, you might like it, but for the price, it's going for between 30 and 40 right now, I believe, on eBay. I got it for about 20. I wheeled and dealed a guy at M.U.S.H.A and managed to pick it up for less. So, it's a decent game. It might be worth picking up. Not sure I'll cover it in the future, but, there it is. Next, we have Gradius 3. Which, of course, if you're familiar with Super Nintendo, it was a launch title released in '91. Yes, it was a launch title. It was one of, with F-Zero and a couple others. So I'm fairly confident in my assessment there that it was released right at when the console was launched. I know there's debates about what were considered launch titles and whatnot, but I say it is. So screw you if you don't. Gradius 3 is a pretty fun game. I remember playing it as a kid in the store, in the setups and the software, etc., and Electronics Boutique. It's got fantastic music. One issue it's got is it's plagued by slowdown, like a lot of early Super Nintendo games, whether you want to say it's because of the processor, whatever. The slow processor, I love saying that because it pisses off the diehard Super Nintendo fans, but I'm a diehard fan too. So, but anyway, it's a good game. The slowdown is troublesome. I've gotten close to beating it, but I didn't quite beat it this time. But man, some of those stages are a lot of fun. The bosses are pretty cool. Like I said, the music is fantastic. It's got your typical Gradius style weapon upgrade system. Just a lot of fun, you know. Slowdown, yeah, kind of hampers it a bit, but you know, for 10 to 12 bucks, which is what it's going for, you can't really go wrong. You might as well pick it up. It's a classic, you know. And I paid about that. I think I paid about 12 bucks for it at MoCon. The guy wouldn't take much less than that, you know. I was kind of disappointed, but it is what it is. So, all right. Next, we have Whip-Rush. This isn't just Whip-Rush, though. This is the Japanese Mega Drive version of Whip-Rush, as you can probably tell from this thing. And I had to pick it up. I already have Whip-Rush. If you watch my channel, you know that you've seen Whip-Rush. I did a video for it. Did a 1cc run, 1LC run, and it's a damn hard game. But I got a complete in box for $10. I think it goes for like 50 to 60 normally for that price for the Japanese versions. I was like, I had to pick it up, and plus I wanted to capture some footage with my Framemeister anyway to show you guys. So there's that. I don't know what else I can say about Whip-Rush really. It's a great game. You know, I think it's really underrated. It's one of those really early Genesis shmups released in 1990. And it just has the whole package as far as the shmup goes. You know, it's got good music. The graphics are good for an early Genesis game. It's got some acrobatic type shmupping in it, you know, and it's a lot of fun. It's tough. It's probably the toughest shmup I've tackled, I would say, so far. Even harder than Thunder Force 4. It's just, there's some parts that are just insane. But otherwise, it's worth picking up, man. If you can get it, by all means, pick it up. It's a good game. Next, we have Twin Cobra, the Genesis port of Twin Cobra, which, you know, it's Twin Cobra. There's been a bunch of ports, 5 or 6, I think. The one I was familiar with originally when I was a kid was the NES version. My friend had it, and I used to go over and play it all the time. And it's an average shmup. It's not great. I mean, it's fine, you know, it's just fine. The graphics are fine, the music is fine. It's your typical vertical military style shmup where you're, you know, shooting. It was released in '91, and by that point, 3 years in, I would have figured it would look a little better. I mean, it's on par with the arcade. I'd say it looks about the same as the arcade. Trying to think of what else I can say about it. It's just an average game, you know. I didn't really have that much fun with it when I played it the other night. It was okay, you know, just an okay game. There's some okay bosses, and backgrounds aren't too bland. So a lot of these vertical shmups, early vertical shmups, had really bland backgrounds. But Twin Cobra was okay. It's okay, you know. I picked it up for about I think, what did I pay for it? Around $10, I think. It goes for like 20 to 25 loose, I believe. So it's, you know, not too bad, but for that price, I honestly wouldn't bother with it. You know, if you can get it for under 10, sure. But for that price, you know, I wouldn't bother. And this is one I got from a local store, you know, at the Play and Trade. So, you know, decent game. Next, we have Strike Gunner on the Super Nintendo. Strike Gunner is kind of an expensive game for what it is, I think, from what I've seen anyway. It's interesting. It was released in '92, which was about, what, a year, 2 years into the Super NES life cycle. It has this really flashy intro. When I first turned it on, I was like, wow, this is really cool. You know, it had these crazy Mode 7 effects going with this big ship flying over. It takes place in 2008, so it already takes place in the past. I don't know exactly what the story is, but it's silly, like most shmups are. But it's a vertical shooter, it's 2 players, you know, but the problem is it's extremely bland. The backgrounds are bland. I just expected more, you know. It's super repetitive. You get the same waves of enemies over and over again. Even the first 2 levels are identical as far as the background. It's just a jungle background you're flying over, and you get most of the same enemies with, you know, with a few differences. The boss fights, on the other hand, are pretty cool. The bosses I really enjoyed playing, so that was cool. The music is pretty good. You know, like a lot of Super Nintendo games, the music was fun. One more thing, the weapon system you pick a weapon each stage. You have your standard weapon, but then you pick another weapon, like on a select screen, and that's the weapon you use for that stage. And once you beat that stage, you can't use that weapon again. So I thought that was an interesting mechanic that was different. I haven't played the game with 2 players because it is 2 players. I figure it's probably a lot better in 2-player mode. I'd like to play a 2-player mode, and I'd probably have a lot more fun with it. But overall, it's an average shmup, maybe slightly below average, I would say. And for the price, it's like, I think it's like 40 to 50 on eBay just for a loose cart. It's crazy, just too much money for what it is. Thankfully, I only paid 15 because I got a deal on it at the con at MoCon, so I was very happy about that because I'm crazy. I'm gonna buy expensive shmups even if they suck, because that's just how I do it. All right, speaking of sucking. Next we have Earth Defense, or as the title screen says, Earth Defend, I believe it says, or it's a different title on the game console and on the title screen, okay? So let me tell you about this game. It was released in 1995 on the Genesis, which is really late in the life cycle, especially for a game this bad. It's terrible. It's awful. Played it for like an hour. I can't believe I played it that long. It's a 2-player shmup. It's unlicensed. That's why it's so terrible. It's an unlicensed Genesis game. And it's got bland, pretty horrible graphics. The sound sounds like an Atari game. It's riddled with slowdown. Enemies are mostly repeating and repetitive. I think there's 5 stages, and I might add, I got to the final boss in my first try. I turned the game on, made all the way to the final boss, and lost. But the fact that I made it that far on my first try, the game is just shit. It's really bad. Also, your special weapon is, they call it a bomb, but you hit it and your ship starts pulsating orange and yellow, and it makes you invincible, but you also can hurt guys with it. So every boss fight consists of you turning on your bomb and flying straight up into the boss, and it goes, and that's it. And you just do that till you beat him. It's just awful, man. And it's super easy on top of all that. So I would never recommend buying this game unless you're a hardcore collector like me. My goal is to collect every Genesis game in the library, so I had to buy it, but I also got it for $2. The cartridge isn't in great shape either. But for $2, I'd say I got my just enough to capture footage, was probably worth it. And just to tell you guys how horrible it is. Otherwise, don't bother with this game. It's complete garbage. Okay, next, and speaking of Darius games, since we already went through one, I got another one for you. Darius Twin on the Super Famicom. That's right, this is the Super Famicom version. And I got the Super Famicom version at Grumpy Bob's Emporium. They had an entire shelf with just Super Famicom games. Guys were all laughing at me because I sat back there for an hour digging through them, looking for them. And this, I found some great games. I found Framemeister 2, and I found this. And I was happy with those 3. And I got them all for like between $5 and $8. It's like, it was totally worth it. And Darius Twin is a decent shooter. It was released in '91. It's 2 players. I owned the Super Nintendo version when I was a kid. My brother and I played it quite a bit. Not even sure we ever beat it, but it's a good average shmup, I would say. It's not great, but it's fun. It's one of the things I always enjoyed about Darius Twin and the Darius series in general was all the enemies are aquatic based. So you got fish, you got seahorses, you got crabs, you got all kinds of goofy stuff like that, but they're all robotic, obviously. So I thought that was cool. And this game is absolutely identical to the Super Nintendo version, except the text is in Japanese in the intro, pretty much is the only difference I could tell. There might be some other ones, but I don't remember. There's, similar to Sagaia on the Genesis, it's got branching paths, not nearly as many. There's only 12 stages as opposed to the 28 on Sagaia. The graphics between the 2 versions are pretty similar. The sprites I think are a little smaller on Genesis, but it looks good. It sounds pretty good. It's got pretty good music. The boss music I love. I think the boss music in this game is some of my favorite boss music in any shmup. It just has this kind of sinister vibe that I really enjoyed. And yeah, there's not too much else to talk about with this game, really. It's an average, pretty average shmup. It goes for about between 12 and 15 bucks on eBay. You know, I think I paid, like I said, under 10, probably 8 bucks for it. It's worth picking up for that price, I think, for anybody. I know Brazzle, the gamer, did his hidden gem videos covered Darius Twin, and it's worthy, yeah. For the price it goes for, absolutely. Next, we have a game I had never heard of until I found it. Vapor Trail on the Sega Genesis, another game released in '91. Had a lot of games released in '91 for some strange reason. But Vapor Trail is pretty cool. We tried it out at MoCon. Me and Tony were playing it, and it's a two-player game, two-player vertical shmup, and it's fun, man. It's a fun little shmup. It's definitely better than Twin Cobra, and the fact that it's two players make it interesting. It's by Renovation. The company Renovation did it, which also did a game called Final Zone on the Genesis, which was one of my favorite Genesis games when I was a kid, which I still don't have, damn it. But they've made some pretty good games. Another thing I love about this game, it's got the lovely, cheesy Genesis gnarly voices. A lot of Genesis games, as you know, would have the voice samples sounded awful, like they were super compressed. You know, some games did better, like Earthworm Jim and Toe Jam and Earl managed to get decent sounding voices. But this game, you can't understand anything they're saying. It's like Thunder Force, you know, the Thunder Force series. It just sounds so terrible.
Lager. I can't hold it.
The game plays similar to Strike Gunner. Similar in that vein, but better. I think it's better. It's more varied than Strike Gunner. The levels are more varied. There's a little more variety. It's got big bosses. There's 3 different planes you can choose from, which is cool. It's one of those near future type games also, where it seems like you've got some basically upgraded jets, you know, that you'd have 10 years from now or something. It's an above average shmup, I would say. Enjoyed it more in 2-player mode. I'd like to play it more in 2-player mode, but it's a fun game. It's an expensive game, unfortunately. You're looking at between 30 and 50 bucks on eBay. That's a lot to justify this game. I don't know if it's that good, but it is good. So if you're into shmups, I would definitely get it. If you're not, pass. I paid about $25. I wheeled and dealed at MoCon with this guy. I bought 4 or 5 games all at once. And got it for about $25, so I was happy. It's kind of a rare Genesis game, so yeah, it's a shmup, so why not? Speaking of other kind of uncommon Genesis games, next we have Fire Shark. And this is a game that I've been looking at for months at my local play and trade, and I finally decided to try and get the guy to come down on the price, because I've been looking at it, like I said, for months. It was released in 1990, and this game shocked me, because it is so much fun. Let me tell you a little story about it. I turned it on, and the default setting is to hard for some reason, which I found interesting. So I just go in, didn't bother changing anything, just went into the game and proceeded to get my ass kicked over and over and over, and I'm like, this game sucks. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So I turned it off. But then I thought, you know, I have to capture some decent footage for this, for my video. So I went back, turned it on, and I went to the options menu and found that it was on hard. So I put it on normal, and I had a blast. It's an arcade port, I should mention. It doesn't look as good as the arcade, but it's got a really fun weapon system. You can adjust the power. You get these little things that adjust the power of each weapon you get, and there's 4 or 5 different weapons, I guess, that are kind of space. You're flying. Let me put this into perspective. You're flying a biplane in an alternate reality. Is what they were talking about. It's what the story is. It's just ridiculous Japanese story. So a guy in a biplane in the future, in a steampunky type future, has to save the world with this crazy biplane with these crazy energy weapons, you know. But it's a lot of fun. It's a great game. On the SHMUP forums, they were talking about it once, and people were saying I was underrated. I think it's an underrated, very underrated game, and I'd highly recommend picking it up. I think the price is like, varies, 18 on the low end probably, 17, 18, all the way up to about 30 loose. I think I paid 18 bucks. He had it listed for 35 at the store, and I got it for 18. So it's a great little game. I really enjoyed it. You know, another vertical shmup in the vein of Twin Cobra, except a lot better. Next, this one I'm very happy that I found. I've been wanting this game for a long time. I never thought I'd own it because the price is ridiculous, but R-Type 3 for the Super Nintendo. R-Type 3 is awesome. I had never played it until I got it at MoCon. I waited till the last possible minute when the con was shutting down. People were shuttering, closing down shop. And I went to the guy and I offered him, I lowballed it. And it goes for around 150 on eBay right now. For a loose card, I got it for about 80 bucks, a little over 80 bucks, which is still stupid expensive. But let me tell you something. R-Type 3 is awesome. It was released in '94, so a little later in the life cycle. It's an upgrade over Super R-Type in almost every conceivable way. It's got 3 force pods, those little pods that you can use instead of just one. So you can choose at the beginning of the game which one you want to use, and each one is completely different in what you can do and the weapons you use. The game has some crazy graphical effects, Mode 7 effects, especially on the first stage. They really start you out with a bang with these crazy spinning, they look almost like polygons with their sprites. You know, it's the crazy Mode 7 sprites scaling. It's really, it's an awesome game. I love it. It's got great music. It's difficult, but it's not stupid difficult like Super R-Type. Super R-Type, man, was crazy, I thought, in difficulty. And also, the slowdown is better. There's still some slowdown, but it's not as bad. You know, it's more manageable, more enjoyable. It's great. I love it. If you got the money, get it. Maybe not for 150, but if you can get it for under 100, I can't believe I'm even recommending you buying a game. It's great. The only downside is there's only 6 stages. The stages are pretty good in length, but 6 seems a little bit like a JIP. You know, a lot of these shmups, I'd say the basic shmup has 8 stages, usually. 6 is short, but you know what? The game's freaking awesome. Emulate if you have to, but get a repro card maybe, you know, for half the price. But R-Type 3, dude, it's an awesome game. Okay, this next one. This is another game I've been wanting for a really long time, and M.U.S.H.A, if that's how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry, dude, if I'm mispronouncing your name. But M.U.S.H.A has been raving about this game, and it's the rarest North American Genesis release you can get. M.U.S.H.A. M.U.S.H.A. $200 to $300 on eBay is what it goes for. Just the cart, just the loose cart. Complete in box, I don't even know. I don't care. I'm just going to tell you, I paid for this game. I know, it's ridiculous. But I had to. If you follow me on Twitter, you'd see that I traded in my Wii U a couple weeks ago, and I got about $200 store credit. And I got this game, and I got No Man's Sky, and I got a bunch of some newer stuff, and then a bunch of other shmups too. So, I still can't believe I spent that kind of money on this game, but I had to, man. The game is freaking amazing. It's everything I wanted it to be. Released in 1990, it's got a kick-ass speed metal soundtrack. Most of it anyway. I think the songs are kind of hit and miss a little, but that opening song in the first stage, man, it's just, I need to get my guy Julian to do some covers of the music in this game, because it's just, it's awesome. The power-up system is really unique. I feel like it's unlike anything I've played in a shmup. Maybe I just haven't played enough shmups, but you have these little pods that come around, and they drop these little pill things, and you get them, and you power up your main weapon. Your main weapon, I believe there's 4 of them you can get. The typical yellow, green, blue, red, and each one does something pretty different though. You have one that moves around your ship like a shield, you have another that shoots like lasers, and you get these little pills and you upgrade that. But on top of that, you have these little drones, and by pressing A, you can control what the drones do. You can move them to different sides of the ship, you can make them rotate your ship, you can angle them in different directions, and the coolest part is you can send them on attack missions. Like, you can send them out to attack enemies, which I just love. But when you send them out, you risk losing them because they can go and they can be killed, you know. That adds a whole other element to the game in depth, you know, I thought, for strategy. And what else? The game is blistering fast. It's going at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Just stuff blowing up everywhere. The game was made by Compile, who made the Guardian Legend, my favorite game of all time, which I'll be covering at some point on this channel. I know it's a hybrid shmup, but there's parallels in this game too with Guardian Legend, I might add. Similar sounds, similar enemies. Maybe they take place in the same universe. I wish I knew. I wish I could talk to the guys who designed this game. But yeah, I basically traded my Wii U to get this game. It's worth it because my Wii U collected dust for 2 years. Sorry, Wii U fans. But M.U.S.H.A, man, unbelievable game. I love it. All right, last game. Now, this game is not one I picked up anywhere. It's technically a new game, at least the cartridges. The game I'm talking about. Rendering Ranger R2. What's that? You've never heard of it? I'm sure some of you have, but most people haven't, and for good reason. Let me tell you a little bit about it, and let me just say, I'm going to be covering this game in the future. Probably on the same level as my Thunder Force 4 video. That's how much this game, I think, deserves to be covered. It was released in 1995, in Japan only, on a Super Famicom. It never got a Super Nintendo release. It was designed by Manfred Frenz, the German developer who's done the Turrican games. And basically it had, I think, a 3 or 4 year development cycle. It was supposed to be released in like 93. And because of Donkey Kong Country, I guess, came out, and the pre-rendered visual inspired this guy Manfeld, to upgrade all the graphics to pre-rendered stuff. So what we got was a true shmup run and gun hybrid. Like, you have a little more than half shmup stages and a little under half run and gun stages. So you got basically Contra 3 mixed with Thunder Force is what this game is. And it is bad ass. It's the most technically impressive 16-bit game I've ever seen. I'd say it's more impressive than most Neo Geo games I've seen. More impressive than maybe even Saturn and PlayStation shmups I've seen. It looks amazing. The pre-rendered visuals, of course, are like Donkey Kong Country, and it just looks amazing. Another interesting fact about this game is that it's on the Super Nintendo, notorious for slowdown issues. This game has no slowdown. Zero slowdown, and we're talking with certain stages with just dozens upon dozens of enemies on the screen at one time, and it's like buttery smooth. This game has its detractors, I think, because I brought it up on the Shmup forums, and there was some guys that were like, yes, that game's amazing, but then there were some that were saying it has issues, and here are the issues I can see, although I think they're minor, honestly. The music's hit or miss. Half the tracks are freaking awesome, and the other half are just bland and boring. Some of the boss fights drag a bit, and some of the stages, especially the running guns, the action gets interrupted by stupid laser things that block your path, and there's a few issues here and there. Overlong, the levels are really long. Some are a little too long, I think, especially on hard, because everything takes more damage on hard, so things get drawn out a bit. Unfortunately, if you want a real copy of this game, it goes for $3,500 on eBay. It was a limited 5,000 copy run, that's it. So that's ridiculous. So in order to play it on original hardware, I bought a repro cart from Flashback Games, which is the one you saw there. Otherwise, it's an amazing game. Stage 7 blew my mind. In fact, as far as I know, this game has never been captured on original hardware in high def before for YouTube in the proper aspect ratio. There are some videos of emulated footage on YouTube, and it's just not the same. So I'll shut up for a minute and take a look at the footage. do yourself a favor and get it. It's worthy. All right, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed my little off-the-cuff episode here. I know I rambled a bit, and but I just wanted to be myself and show you guys, you know, some pretty cool games I picked up, and hopefully you enjoyed the footage, you enjoyed the usual graphical effects and things that I do. And the you know, I always try to keep my production values very high. So I hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think of these games. Let me know if you've played any of these games, if you know, what you think of them. Like I said, I didn't spend as much time as I wanted to with each of these. So yeah, let me know. And have a good one, guys. Take it easy.